Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin, and I thought it was an interesting and humorous week. I have little faith in Joe Biden. I think he's past his prime. We don't have to go into that in a scary way. But Kamala Harris, phew, it's she went on her first international journey to solve or to help mitigate the border crisis and an abject failure on both sides of the aisle, correct?
Yes, I mean, Kamala Harris gave multiple press conferences, did an interview with Lester Holt, and in every one exhibited the fact that she has the IQ of a houseplant. Uh, and Lester Holt, now, I have no love for Lester Holt. Lester Holt in
Is a political
2016,
hack.
yes, in 2016, when Hillary Clinton conceded the election, he audibly sighed and was upset on the air that his side had lost. And even he, when interviewing Kamala Harris, held her feet to the fire because she was lying through her teeth about what was going on at the border. So they've even lost the Democrats have lost their political allies in the media now.
Some, not all.
No, not all. It's going to take a while for all of them to be held accountable for a lot of the lies that they've been spreading over the past years. But little by little, the Democrats are not giving them a choice, because what the media pundits are finding is they have the choice of either backing Biden-Harris or maintaining credibility. And they know they can't do both. And if they lose their credibility, they lose their jobs.
That is fascinating. That is the perfect analysis. 100% correct. I think they're going to go kicking and screaming to be more, let's just say, fair-minded, because they have no choice. Because what they're covering is a train wreck. And if you keep on telling people, there's no wreck here, it's just nothing's going on here. People understand this is, anyone looking at the interview with Lester Holt would know Kamala Harris is not ready for prime time.
No, she's not ready for prime time. She doesn't know what's going on. Her comment when Holt pressed her that she hadn't been to the border, her comment that she said, I also haven't been to Europe, showed, and she said, I don't understand your point. She's completely inept. She does not understand that she has to go and see the situation to be able to handle it.
Well, the real question, Dr. Lopkin, is, has she actually done anything? I don't want to get into particulars, but she didn't reach where she was totally on her merit. We'll just leave it at that. Correct?
No, she hasn't. Okay. And she's talking about, well, you have to address the root problem. And she was in Guatemala to address the root problem. Well, here's the problem with what she's saying. She seems to think that all of these immigrants that are coming through illegally are all coming from what they call the Northern Triangle. It's Mexico, Guatemala, Venezuela. Except what we've actually seen, and the federal government's own statistics back this up, is that this wave of immigrants is coming from 75 different countries. So she's going, well, we have to fix the problems where they live. The American people are now responsible for fixing 75 foreign countries?
Well, I'm very interested in this because I do remember Jimmy Carter, who is exponentially more competent than this duo. And I do know, I've seen it firsthand, the press eventually does turn, as exactly what you said happens. And I think that will happen. I think another very interesting situation is the one with Manchin. And I believe somewhat of an obscure politician. He's now at the forefront of the political spectrum. And I believe that, and I want your comments. I think that he's in a great position to have a lot of leverage. I don't think he can retreat from the positions he already took, and I believe there is a chance. I don't know how great that chance is that he could flip.
It's very possible. Manchin and Harris are polar opposites of each other. And before I go more into Manchin, we've been talking about how the media is, starting to flip. Well, we've talked on previous podcasts about the fact that the foreign press is not going to cover for Biden Harris. And we saw this with this Guatemala trip, because Harris was greeted by banners that said Trump won the election. The president of Guatemala told her point blank that what's going on at the border is the fault of the Biden policies, not the Trump policies. And the president of Mexico has previously said that to Joe Biden. So now we've got to sort of fall in line with the international press talking about what's really going on. Now, Manchin has become prominent because he is the polar opposite of Harris. He has held his ground. He is defending the needs of his constituency. And for those of you who don't know, Manchin is the Republican senator from West Virginia.
Democratic.
Democratic senator from West Virginia. And because of the 50-50 split in the Senate, he has become the most powerful Democratic senator, because the Democrats can't pass anything without all of them being in lockstep. And Manchin has not been in lockstep. He has so far pretty much scuttled the infrastructure bill because the Democrats refused to pull out all of the pork that had nothing to do with infrastructure. He has scuttled the Democrats' attempt to federalize election law, because he said the only way he's going to vote for a law that changes elections is if it's a bipartisan effort. So
here's what I think. Here's my prognostication of what's going to happen. Could happen. I believe that if it was common bantering back and forth, he would stick his ground, would not consider leaving the Democratic Party. I think he's carved out a unique niche. However, I think as the attacks become more vicious, more personal, he may decide that the Democratic Party left him, not vice versa. What do you think?
That's very possible. I mean, the attacks are being ramped up. They've gone after him with name calling and personal attacks. We saw also this week such mental midgets as Cher going after him on Twitter. And
the beneficiary of a sixth grade education, but we'll go from there.
Exactly. But the Democrats have to walk a fine line, because they need Manchin more than Manchin needs them. He can switch parties if he wants. He honestly wouldn't lose the support of his voters, and then the Democrats would lose the 50-50 split and be the minority in the Senate again.
If you were an odds maker, what would you give the odds of him flipping? I'd say 30%.
At this point, I don't even think it's that high yet. I think it's closer to 20-25, but I think the longer the Democratic attack on him goes on, the greater those odds become. And quite frankly, Democratic strategists came out this week and they made a couple of comments that a lot of people ignored, but they are very telling. One of which said, they had way too high hopes for 2020 and honestly thought they were going to be able to sweep the House and the Senate and have a mandate, and they didn't get the mandate. And this is Democratic strategists saying they do not have a mandate from the American people, which the wackos on the far left would have you believe that they have gotten a mandate, and that's simply not true. The other thing is they were dissecting Kamala Harris's trip. And, Kamala Harris came out in a press conference today and declared her trip a total success. And Democratic strategists
So did the captain of the Titanic.
Yes. The Democratic strategists came out and said not only was this trip a massive failure, it's a failure on such a magnitude that it is going to haunt her for as long as she is in politics.
Wow. Real quick, as we wrap this edition of Carnivore Bites and we get into a more elongated or protracted and more analytical version next week, Dick Morse, personally, he's got some issues, but he has a good sense of the political landscape. He commented, and I want your comment for our listeners, feels that the Biden agenda has already lost its momentum.
Oh, it's absolutely lost its momentum and primarily because of people like Manchin, like I can't remember Kristen's last name, but Kristen is the Democratic senator from Arizona. They have been staunchly moderate, and they have, because they didn't, the Democrats did not get the majority they thought they were going to get in the Senate. They have been able to put the brakes on the left-wing wackos that are trying to ram things through.
I also think it's bigger than that. That is a definite factor, but I think that Biden is basically not in touch with what's going on. Other handlers, Susan Rice, among others, have taken over his radical policies, and they're not his, the people surrounding him, their policies are so out of touch. That's the bigger issue with mainstream America that they have no understanding of. That's one of the bigger reasons why it's lost steam.
Yeah, no, they have no concept of what mainstream America is going through. And more than just the facts of the agenda, which were bad enough to begin with, because Biden is so out of it, Kamala Harris has basically become the face of this administration. And in fact, at one point, the president of Guatemala referred to her as Presidente Harris. And she, again, her press conferences, her interviews, she has come off as having the IQ of a houseplant, completely incompetent, and it has shaken the confidence of all of the moderate Democrats. And now it's starting to affect some of the, further left, not the left-wing wackos. They believe in her 100%. But the more moderate Democrats, which they still are, they're looking at this going, oh, we're in big trouble if we let these idiots take control of the party.
No question about it. Well, Friday is our last edition of Carnivore Radio Live. We're focusing and really getting in tune really with the way things are on podcasts, that we're going to have more of an expanded edition of Carnivore Bites. Isn't that correct, Dr. Lopkin?
That's true, and you'll be able to listen to every episode on demand whenever you want.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lopkin. Thank our listeners.
You've been listening to Carnivore Bites, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch us every week on carnivoreradio.com, exvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcast Store, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you find podcasts.